What happens if you have another episode like we saw during the debate?
What happens if another? I don't plan on having another performance on that level.
Well, we are now on round, I think, 7 of Joe Biden trying to convince the world that he's more than fully capable of being president of the United States, and he is in it to win it on the ticket in November. So stop saying that he's brain dead. Stop saying that he's lost all mental and physical capabilities. No. He's fine. He's the president after all. This latest go around is with Lester Holt, the very friendly and accommodating anchor from NBC News. And well, it was pure Joe Biden.
If you were to continue to run and be officially nominated, what happens if you have another episode like we saw during the debate?
What happens if another?
Yeah, what happens if you have another performance on that on that level?
I don't plan on having another performance on that level.
There, that's reassuring. Everybody feel better now? Keep those donations coming. Everything's fine. What the hell did we just see? It's too beautiful. Let's watch it again.
If you were to continue to run and be officially nominated, what happens if you have another episode like we saw during the debate?
What happens if another?
Yeah, what happens?
What happened? What happened? Hasn't ever fashion? And you know Jill Biden is just off camera going, damn it. There goes my limo rides. I would love to see what the transcript said of this. What did closed captioning have to do on this one?
During the debate.
What happens if another?
Yeah, what happens?
I think he's trying to say, what happens if I have another? What happens? What happens? And so then Lester Holt has to repeat the question again. What was hard about that? What happens if you show to the world that you have mashed potato for brains again? What happens if your brain malfunctions again? What happens? You say, oh, everything's fine. That was a one-off. It was just an episode. What happens if you have another episode? Mashed potato for brains?
What happens if you have another performance on that on that level?
I don't plan on having another performance on that level.
There you go. Everything's fine then. He does that. Hey, everyone, it's okay. Everything's fine. He doesn't plan on having another performance at that level, which I guess I would follow up if I were Lester Holt, and I would ask, I'm sorry, Mr. President, did you in fact plan on having the last one? Was the last one part of the plan? Your last debate performance, you remember, or do you? Did you actually schedule that out? Did you rehearse all that, what you did? Was that planned? No, of course it wasn't planned. Oh, okay. So then just one more follow-up question. You didn't plan to have the last brain malfunction meltdown on live television that made everybody think there is, in fact, a mashed potato for brains president with his finger on the nuclear button. You didn't plan that. And now when asked what happens again, if it happens again, your response is, I don't plan on having another one. In other words, you're exactly where you were right before the last public meltdown and malfunction. So once again, walk down this path with me, pal. It ain't that hard. What happens when it happens again? I don't plan on it. The Democrats are freaking out right now, guys. And, although I want to rescind, because I've never thought that Joe Biden would make it all the way to Election Day. I might have to reevaluate that, because I think the Democrats right now recognize that even if they somehow rip up the Constitution and they're able to bring Barack Obama back or JFK back and have him run, they're still going to lose. I'm not overconfident. I'm just saying the indications right now are very strong for the Republican ticket. They might just say, yeah, let's just throw Joe to the wolves. Screw it. It's over. We can't salvage this. We'll just hold up for Big Mike 4 years from now. Everything will be fine. All right, more of Joe Biden's scintillating interview here.
Mr. Trump has said he's giving you a chance to redeem yourself. Basically, the idea of engaging in another debate.
We're going to have another debate.
Yeah, you're going to have one in September that's on the books. Would you be open to doing one in the next few weeks?
I'm going to debate him when we agreed to debate, and I'm going to debate him in September.
But if the opportunity came up to do one between now and then, is there a sense of wanting to get back on the horse?
I'm on the horse. Where have you been? I've done 22 major events, met thousands of people, overwhelming crowds, a lot happening. I'm on the horse. What I'm doing is going out and demonstrating to the American people that I have command of all my faculties, that I don't need notes, I don't need teleprompter. I can go out and answer any questions at all. And I stood there when NATO was in town. I stood there for an hour and answered questions.
There you go. I'm on the horse, baby. This is the best I've ever been. This is what you get, man. I'm demonstrating to the American people. And I love the hostility. Look at the face. He is so pissed off at Lester Holt. Does he realize that Lester Holt is the easiest possible interviewer he is ever going to have? Maybe Joy Reid will be easier. I'm not so sure about that, though. But look how ticked off he is. He's got a very short fuse. Have you noticed that? Quick to anger all of a sudden. I wonder if that's a symptom of anything. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but he seems very testy. So he's proving that he can operate on the world stage without a teleprompter and without any notes. Really? When? When? Literally everything he's done has been with a teleprompter, except for that press conference, which was hardly an impressive performance. He asked questions from pre-approved reporters, and he did have notes. He did have a teleprompter for his opening remarks, and he barely made it through. But no, this is it. He's on the horse, man. He's charging to the finish line. Go on, Flicka.
Taken a step back and done a little soul searching on things that you may have said that could incite people who are not balanced.
Well, I don't think, look, how do you talk about the threat to democracy, which is real, when a president says things like he says? Do you just not say anything because it may incite somebody? Look, I've not engaged in that rhetoric. Now, my opponent is engaged in that rhetoric. He talks about there'll be a bloodbath if he loses, talking about how he's going to forgive all the, actually, I guess, suspend the sentences of all those who were arrested and sentenced to go to jail because of what happened in the Capitol. I'm not out there making fun of, like, when remember the picture of Donald Trump when Nancy Pelosi's husband was hit with the hammer, joking about it.
This doesn't sound like you're turning down the heat, though. You've talked about
No. Look, what I'm turning down, we have to stop the whole notion that there are certain things that are contrary to our democracy that we're for. The idea of saying that I didn't win the election, when every court in the land, I don't know, 20 appeals said, and including this conservative Supreme Court, said we won. The idea of having a loyalty pledge from all the folks who are in Republican MAGA, not all Republicans, the MAGA Republicans, saying that, no, we lost the election, inflaming the people and say,
So what?
All right, so let me just break down what you just saw, because it was really revealing, and I don't think Lester Holt, he sort of had what Rush Limbaugh used to call a accidental act of journalism, right? He didn't intend this to happen, but Lester Holt actually got news and information out of this interview instead of just giving the full body massage like they usually do, with a happy ending. First of all, Lester Holt actually called Joe Biden out on his bullshit. Lester Holt said, you say you're trying to tamp down the rhetoric, and yet all you're doing is going back to all of the same, again, these are my words. I wish Lester Holt had put it this way. But instead, you're just going back and repeating all the same old blasphemous, incendiary. Oh God, why can't I think of the word? Incendiary. all the incendiary lies that you've been telling about Donald Trump that riles up people. You just repeated all of them just now. Bloodbath. He went back to the bloodbath lie. Trump literally said that the economy would be a bloodbath, and they're acting like he had blood on his hands. He's calling for blood in the streets. He didn't say anything like that. But Biden just repeated that. But then the clarity happens. When Lester Holt says, it looks like you're going right back to the same old rhetoric that last night you just disavowed. You gave an address to the American people from the Oval Office saying it's time to end this incendiary, hardened political rhetoric that has led to the violence that we saw Saturday night. And did you see what Joe Biden did here? Joe Biden said, no, wait a minute. I wasn't talking about me. I wasn't talking about Democrats. No. When I was sitting in the Oval Office and I was telling the American people that we had to change the tone in this country as a result of the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, I meant that Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans need to change their tone. I meant all those people have to change their tone. I'm fine. That's what he just admitted. That's what he said. That was his message. He's a horrible man. And let me just tell you something. I was going to hesitate to show this to you, but you need to see it. The man who is saying that everyone else is at fault here. It's Trump and those MAGA Republicans. My tone is fine. The words I use are fine. I haven't engaged in any of this political rhetoric. I'm just pointing out the differences between me and my opponent. The day before the assassination attempt, the Biden campaign put out this ad on the internet. This played as a pre-roll on YouTube and other social media sites. And you'll see at the very beginning of this ad that this is not from some third-party campaign. This is not from some, who knows where they got their dark money from. This is the Joe Biden campaign. This is the Biden for President campaign. Look, I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message. Take a look at this video.
Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Of course I hate these people.
Donald Trump disrespecting black folk is nothing new. He was sued for refusing to rent his apartments to black families and called for the execution of 5 innocent black and brown teenagers.
And it's more than anger, it's hatred.
It's why Trump stood with violent white supremacists, warned of a bloodbath if he loses the next election. And if he's president again, vowed to be a dictator who wants revenge on his enemies. Now, who do you think that is?
Of course I hate these people.
The day after that ad ran, Donald Trump came half an inch away from having his head blown off by an assassin's bullet. And when pressed on the volatile, deceitful, insightful, incendiary political rhetoric that his campaign is engaged in, Joe Biden just said, not me. I'm fine. Trump's the problem. It's his fault that he almost got his head blown off. Joe Biden is an awful, awful, awful human being. Even if his brain is mashed potatoes. Honestly, that's the best, most sympathetic thing about him at this point, as evidenced by more of this interview with Lester Holt.
You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that
I didn't say
words
crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was, there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term was bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing.
Now, again, mashed potato for brains, liar, and completely incomprehensible. Let's do this moment by moment, shall we? I love breaking this down. Somebody in our comment section says, when I do this and break down a video, like, every 4 seconds at a time, it's doing a Larry on it. I'm going to do a Larry on this video. It's only 30 seconds long.
You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you...
By the way, what context? What context is needed here? Put Trump in the bullseye is pretty clear. And before he starts to lie and make absolutely no sense, because his brain, like I said, is mashed potatoes, can we just all not get lost in the verbiage here? Let's define our terms. What is a bullseye? a bullseye is the center of a target. Okay. If you're doing shooting practice or something, whether it's a bow and arrow or whether it's at a firing range, you've got a target. And the very center of that target is the bullseye. Okay. The center of a target that you're aiming at is a bullseye. Remember that, because what he's about to say makes no sense if you actually understand the English language as he tries to weasel out of this. Put Trump in the bullseye.
You appreciate.
I didn't say
words matter.
crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth.
I didn't say crosshairs. Well, nobody said you said crosshairs, numbskull. You said bullseye. Now, the crosshairs are something that's in the scope of a gun. You didn't say that. You're right. No one said you said that. You said bullseye. And then he says, I didn't say crosshairs. I meant focus on. How in the hell is bullseye and focus on even closely related? Well, I said to put him in the bullseye, which is the very center of a target. But what I meant is focus on him. What do you mean? Those are two like wildly different things. He either has no idea what he's talking about or he's a complete and total bald-faced liar. Could be both. Could be both.
Truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Think about that for a minute. So, and listen, I do get that. Nobody was talking about Trump because everyone was talking about how he completely malfunctioned at the debate and he looks like he's suffering from a neurological disorder. And we found out that they were been covering up visits from a Parkinson's specialist and neurologist at the White House for months and months and months, and they continue to lie about it. And so Joe Biden is frustrated that no one's talking about Trump. So what does he say? It's time to put Trump in the bullseye. Not focus on Trump. Put him in the bullseye. Target him. Aim at him. That's what bullseye means. And he's now trying to weasel out of it because somebody used Donald Trump as a target with a bullet. And now he's trying to lie to you. Now he's trying to weasel out of it.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant
No one said you used crosshairs. My God. My God. You seriously got brain damage. Okay, let's move on from that because there's more. And we'll have an 8-hour show if I keep going at this pace. All right, a little bit more.
Is it acceptable that you have still not heard, at least publicly, from the Secret Service director?
oh, I've heard from him.
But have you heard from her publicly?
Publicly, I've sat down in a situation room downstairs with the Secret Service, the FBI, the national security agencies, the Homeland Security, all the major elements.
Is it acceptable?
So the head of the Secret Service, director of the Secret Service is a woman. And I don't know what her gender identification is, I guess. But as far as I know, her pronouns are she, her. And she identifies as the woman that she was born biologically as. And Joe Biden just said, I don't think Joe Biden knows who the head of Secret Service is. Or he thinks that Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the Secretary of Homeland Security, who oversees the Secret Service, maybe he thinks that Alejandro Mayorkas is actually the head of the Secret Service. But when asked, have you talked to the director of the Secret Service? Joe Biden says, I've talked to him.
Well, you have still not heard, at least publicly, from the Secret Service director?
Oh, I've heard from him.
I've heard from him. So, I mean, either he has mashed potatoes for brains, or he doesn't know who works in his own cabinet and in his own administration, or he just misgendered someone, which I think is probably the biggest crime of all if you're a creature of the left. I want to remind you that this was the interview that was meant to quell people's fears. Again, this is like the 8th or 9th attempt to do that, to just let everybody know, because the George Stephanopoulos interview didn't go well. So then they had to announce another interview. This time we're going to get it right, and this time everyone's going to feel good about Joe Biden as the president and as the nominee. How's that going?
I've never seen a circumstance where you ride through certain rural areas of the country. People have signs there, big Trump signs with middle signs saying F Biden, and the little kid standing there putting up his middle finger. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that is just inflammatory and a kind of viciousness. It's a very different thing than say, look, I really disagree with Trump's the way he takes care of taxes.
Oh, Has Joe Biden been spending a lot of time talking about Donald Trump's tax policy? Because I've missed it. What I've heard from Joe Biden about Donald Trump has nothing to do with tax policy or national security policy or spending policy or environmental policy or border policy. No, all I've heard from Joe Biden is that Donald Trump is an existential threat to the republic, and that if this election goes Donald Trump's way, it'll be the last free election we have in this country. And now he's saying, I just can't believe how the rhetoric has gotten in this country. I mean, I'm just sitting here criticizing the tax policies of Donald Trump, and now I've got an F Biden sign out there. Well, first of all, if you hadn't effed up the country so much, we wouldn't have F Biden, number one. But number two, understand what Joe Biden's doing here. He's asked about where we are as a country right now when his political opponent just came a fraction of an inch from having his head blown off. And Joe Biden says, oh, well, you think that's bad? I have to deal with little kids giving me the finger when I'm on a motorcade. I've got it really tough. Forget about the mangled ear from a bullet whizzing by and an assassination attempt at a political rally. That's nothing. I have to deal with an F Biden sign when I'm driving through the countryside in my motorcade. I'm the victim here. Why doesn't anybody see that? What a horrible, despicable man he is. Thankfully for Joe Biden, if you're a Democrat right now, you are praising God that this happened on the night that the Republican National Convention occurred. J.D. Vance was named as the running mate, and Donald Trump made a triumphant return to the public scene because nobody paid attention to this bullshit. That's why you're watching, and I appreciate you doing that. There's a little bit more here.
Before this violent turn of events over the weekend, the talk, as you know, was about you and your future, if you should stay in the race. Your allies, James Clyburn, Nancy Pelosi, have kind of put it out there that they're waiting for your decision, giving you time to make your decision. What I hear from you is that you made your decision. Are you still comfortable in that decision? Has anything changed in the last several days?
No.
What do you make of people like Nancy Pelosi, though, who seem to be of the opinion that there is a window for you to make this choice? What aren't they getting?
Look, we knew this was going to be a close race from the moment he announced. The idea that we are in a situation where, if you look at all the polling data shows a lot of different things, but there's no wide gap between us. It's essentially a toss-up race. And I think one of the arguments that get made, you have the most successful presidency of any president in modern history, maybe since Franklin Roosevelt. Passed more major legislation no one thought could get done. We're able to put together consensus. We're able to unite NATO. We're able to deal in foreign policy. Why don't you just decide to rest on those laurels? And the answer is because the job's not finished.
Do you feel like you've weathered the storm on this issue of whether you should be on the ticket or not?
14 million people voted for me to be the nominee in the Democratic Party. Okay? I listen to them.
All right. So I'm torn on this one because I want Trump to win and I want this guy to go down in a humiliating loss. And so if he's deluded enough to think this, go for it, man. Democrats, you made your bargain. You're stuck with it. Let's go. I want him to be humiliated on election night. He's such a horrible, despicable man. And it's not just the recent Joe Biden, let's go Brandon person that's so despicable. You go back, you ask Clarence Thomas's family what kind of guy this guy is, or Robert Bork's family, what kind of person he is, or the poor guy. Well, we could go on and on about how bad. So I'm torn. But if I can just point out some of the delusions that you just heard here about where Joe Biden is right now. Do you notice how he pivoted this conversation and said, but we have such a great record. We got so much done legislatively. We've been able to unite the world and expand NATO and strengthen NATO and do all of these things. It's funny because with all of those great things going on in the Biden administration, you don't see them talking about that much in their ads or their social media footprint or any of the messaging. The only thing, only thing you hear from them is Trump is an existential threat to this country and MAGA Republicans are fascists who are going to shred the Constitution. If his record is so good, why doesn't he talk about it? Why doesn't he run on it? During this entire interview, all he could do is talk about what a threat Donald Trump is. Charlottesville, right? So listen, Joe, I'm begging you, be true to your word. You're right. Your record is phenomenal. Between now and Election Day, just do nothing but remind the American people that you've been in charge of our economy and our national security and our border and our crime policies in this country. Please do that. Oh, and education. Remind everybody what a great job you've done with our schools, too. Please do that. That would be a beautiful thing. But you saw here how Lester Holt is continuing to sort of press the issue. You know, you keep saying you've made your decision, but Nancy Pelosi says that she's waiting for you to make the decision. That suggests that maybe there's a disconnect here. What's going on? And Joe Biden, at the end of the day, finally figured out what his real problem was. Joe Biden's problem is that the press has been too mean to him, that the media has been his enemy. That's what Joe Biden thinks.
In your last TV interview, you were asked if you had watched the debate, and your answer was, I don't think so, no. Have you since seen it?
I've seen pieces of it. I've not watched the whole debate.
And the reason I ask, because I guess the question is, are you all on the same page? Are you seeing what they saw, which was moments of, frankly, that appeared to be, you appeared to be confused?
Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 28 lies he told? Where are you on this? Why didn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. I had a bad night. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I had been, without it making it, I screwed up. But
I just asked the question because the idea that you may or may not have seen what some of these other folks have seen, you're not on the same.
I'd have to see. I was there. I'd have to see it. I was there. And by the way, seriously, you won't answer the question, but why didn't the press talk about all the lies he told?
Well,
I didn't know anything about that.
We have reported many of the issues that came up during that debate.
No, you haven't.
We'll provide you with them.
God love you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks again to Newsbusters. They're great. We love them at Media Research Center for that video clip as well. What a maniacal jerk he is. And I love that he's now turning on the press because, you know, anybody with a pair of eyes can see how unfair the media, they've been so hard on Joe Biden from the very beginning. I mean, Donald Trump, you know, he had a cakewalk compared to what Joe Biden's had to deal with the press. That whole lean forward and the maniacal laugh thing, I think that they have coached him, you know, that instead of getting angry, just laugh. Make sure you laugh. You've got such a winning smile, Joe. He looks like a freaking maniac. It is incredibly disconcerting. I want to let Scott Jennings at CNN wrap this up, this segment at least. We've got another segment on J.D. Vance, and you're going to want to see it. But Scott Jennings at CNN has been so phenomenal, and he did not disappoint yesterday in summing up Joe Biden's lamentable, pathetic, mean-spirited performance with Lester Holt. Take it away, Jennings.
From that interview, Scott Jennings, you're shaking your head.
This man's opponent just got his ear shot off, okay? And his instinct was to try to do some wordplay with the crosshairs bullseye thing, and then turned right around and uttered the lie about the dictator, which is a complete and total lie, and the lie about the bloodbath, which is a complete and total lie. I find this to be pathetic and small and partisan. I need the president to have an ounce of humility and introspection here. He is our leader. He's our leader, and he needs to simply say, I want to lower the temperature. I'll take responsibility for my part. We should all do that together. And he cannot do it. He can't do it.
I understand how upset you are,
Without using language that incites people. And I think if we don't, hang on.
Yeah.
And I think if we can't have an honest conversation about that for the next 3.5 months, then we're going to wake up in November in a country we don't recognize.
I'll tell you one way we can have an honest conversation about it, by having an honest conversation about it, because the bloodbath, the dictator, so much of what the Biden campaign says about Donald Trump is just
But he did say
not
Those are all
true.
things he said,
these
Scott.
in
I
your
mean,
parlance,
those
these
are
are
all-
cheap fakes.
those are
it's not real.
Good job, Scott. And listen, he's the only person they allow on there to disagree with them. And let's see how long he lasts, because he's incredibly effective. It's always him against 8 on the panel. And he summed it up beautifully. And look at how they hate him. They hate him for pointing out their lies. They hate him for pointing out their hypocrisy. But he's doing a great job at it. And I hope he keeps continuing in that vein.